the debate over women's sports and how to protect them from men competing as women continues in this country. And it's taken an aggressive turn this week. There's a couple of female athletes who have become sort of the face of this movement in protecting women's sports. We had Riley Gaines on Friday, talk to her, and she's come out now with a new proposal that women who are competing right now at the high school and collegiate level, even the pro level, should boycott any competition where there is a transgender athlete involved as well. Is that the right way to go? Is this the only way to make a difference? Let's bring in another face of this movement. She is Taylor Silverman. You'll remember our conversation with Taylor. She's a skateboarder, and she lost out to men who were competing as women in the past. Taylor, thanks for joining us on this.
Thank you for having me, Larry. I'm happy to be back again.
Now, I remember your story. You ended up, paying your way to get to New York to go to this competition, and then when you
It
were
was
there, you
Nebraska,
found
this one.
oh, sorry, Nebraska. Thank you. I knew there was an N involved.
There's
And you
been
found
a
out,
lot of states where this has happened, though, so I don't blame you for getting them confused.
well, and then when you get there, you find out you're now competing against a dude, right? So, I mean, would it have been feasible for you to boycott at that point? You're already out of pocket, right?
Yeah, I think at that point it was such a shock to me that I didn't know how to handle it. And I'd seen it happen before. Obviously, this has happened two other times to me, but it was still a shocking thing to go through and to know what to do.
Yeah.
And, finding out an hour or two before it happened, I was in a position where I didn't know what to do. I thought it was best to just, basically compete for second place at that point. But I wish I would have spoke up sooner. And it's great to see people actually like joining this movement, speaking up and calling for female athletes like Riley's doing to just say no and not participate, because female athletes should not be participating in this mockery being made of them. It's plain and
So you
simple. And
so you agree with this new idea that women, basically young women in the high school level, in the college level, or even in the pro level, if they're faced with this situation, they should just opt out, even though they put in all these years and all the training. Is this the way to make a difference?
well, I think it is incredibly tragic that girls and women are having to sit out of their own division. But when we compete anyway, it makes it seem like we're okay with it. And that was something that weighed heavy on me after it happened, was feeling like people I thought that this was okay because I participated. But
Yeah.
I don't know what else the solution will be other than just saying no. And I actually think we need to take it a step further. And I know a lot of people don't want to say this, but I think as a whole, as a society, we need to start rejecting the lies of the idea that somebody can transition to the opposite sex in the first place. Because the truth is, the issue with female sports is a symptom of a much larger problem. The issue with, female prisons, with bathrooms, locker rooms, all this is a symptom of a much larger problem. And that is that much of society has accepted that if a man declares he's a woman, then he is one. And it's just not true.
I mean, that's fundamentally so. And so this is even taking it beyond the athletic aspect of it. You're just saying that we need to opt out of the whole dysphoria involved in changing our language and mentality. The bottom line is a man cannot be a woman and a woman cannot be a man, period.
Yeah, and that might seem harsh, but I wholeheartedly believe that a difficult truth is far more compassionate than a complete lie. And
Yeah.
I think that it's played out pretty clearly that the people who get most negatively impacted by this when we go along with it are women and children, but also people who are being hurt by this are people who believe that they are transgender, people who identify as transgender. And who's benefiting?
Yeah.
Doctors and big pharma that are pushing this and who are making a lot of money off of surgeries, off of medications, and locking in patients for life. And we're seeing an increasing number in children now identifying as transgender. We're seeing an increasing number also in people who are detransitioning, who thought that they
Yeah.
were trans identifying and then come out later and say, this was a huge mistake. And my doctor really lured me into this and told me this was going to be a magic fix all. But it wasn't actually something that could even be possible for me to switch, and it didn't solve my problems.
See, and that's the real challenge here. You just nailed it. Is like my doctor suggested this. See, as soon as you or I or any other commentator or a politician or high profile individual makes this case that a man cannot be a woman and a woman cannot be a man, and we as society have to draw certain lines here based on truth. we're going to be pushed back with, well, science is telling us otherwise. Studies tell us otherwise. Research is telling us otherwise. Doctors and PhDs are telling us otherwise. And now where do we go with the conversation at that point?
Well, I think it's important to recognize that these are truths that have been this way forever.
Right.
Like you can do a study and tell me that you can change biology, but common sense says no. And it's sad to see this impacting female athletes because I know how hard it is to get to that point in the first place where you're even competing at that level or any level for that matter. And then to feel like you have to sit out or to feel like you're not allowed to succeed. But
Yeah.
what are we to do other than be honest? And I think it's actually the best thing to do for the individuals who identify as trans too, is to be honest. Like the same way that I wouldn't tell an anorexic, yeah, there is something wrong with your body. I don't think that we should be telling people who identify as transgender that they have to take medical steps to change themselves either. I think that there
Yeah.
is obviously mental health issues going on and people should be supported in getting better, but I don't think that medical intervention, surgeries, medication is the right way to do that, and I don't think that it helps those individuals in the long run either.
Yeah, so it's interesting as this movement really takes off, and I do think the sports issue is one of the things that is so obvious on the face of it that begins this conversation, right? I feel. Do you tell me, because you're in the right there on the ground with it? This has affected you personally as a skateboarder competing against men. I feel like the pendulum, at least on the sports issue, has swung in our favor now. Are you sensing that?
Absolutely. Even amongst people who vote Democrat, many of them do not agree with this when surveyed. And it's truly a nonpartisan issue, though they try to pretend it's not, that this is
Yeah.
some right wing extremist take. Most people agree that biological males should not be participating in sports with women. And
Right.
I think this was an issue that unfortunately had to get worse before it got better because for so long and still now, people tell me, well, this isn't really happening, and then I say, well, it happened to me 3 times. And I know dozens of other women just within skateboarding that it's happened to, and hundreds of other stories of women in other sports. It's impacting children now. Like, this is
Yeah.
a very broad issue. And when people start to realize that it's actually happening, that it is impacting girls, not just in sports with, their safety, their dignity, respect in sports, but also their privacy in locker rooms and safety
Right.
in that area too, in a lot of sports, people they can't ignore it anymore when they've seen all these stories. So I don't think that it should be viewed as a political issue. This should be something that anyone with common sense, anyone with kids, anyone who is a female athlete or a coach or just has a, a little bit of common sense in their body to recognize how messed up this is, they should
Yeah.
be able to agree that this is wrong, it shouldn't be handled this way, and not be afraid to speak about it, because a lot
Yeah.
of people, they agree, they're just scared to say so.
Totally. I 100% agree. And I hear this from you and from other athletes who hear all the time from colleagues who say, I'm glad you're doing this. I can't. And I
Hmm.
get that. And so then when you win that argument, it then makes it easier, I think, to make the next argument. It's like, okay, we agree on sports. We agree on the locker room. We agree on high school girls. Now let's take this one step further because look at what else is going on. Can we reach a point, though, where if there are adults, individual adults who, for one reason or another, choose to live their life in this way, as long as it doesn't infringe on other people's rights, live and let live. You do what you want in your own life and just leave me alone. Is that where we're headed? Is that where you hope we can head?
Yeah, I think that as an adult, you should be able to make decisions about your body and about your life, present as you choose, live as you choose. That doesn't mean you can infringe on the rights of others, obviously, but I don't have to agree with it. Everybody doesn't have to agree with it. We can still all live together. But what I think needs to stop is this push for language to be controlled, to suggest that this is something we can actually biologically change, because it's not. And I
Right.
think
The truth is
especially
the
we
truth,
need
and
to
it's got to stay the
we
truth. And it's funny, you said
most
something so interesting there.
importantly
Yeah. You
well,
said
well,
something
most
interesting today where
importantly,
you
we
said, I
have
don't
to
have to
stop
agree
pushing
with
this
it.
on
See,
children.
we've gone from tolerate this. Well, actually, we've gone from don't hate this and don't discriminate against this to you must tolerate this to you must agree with this to you must celebrate this. And we got to get back to at least at the level of tolerate and leave it at that. We got to leave it there. Taylor Silverman, thanks for joining us. There's more to come on O'Connor Tonight.